What is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Hamistang, and today I'm going to give you my review over here about the Xiaomi 11T Pro. And I've actually been using this phone as my daily driver for about a week or so already, and I of course got a lot of things to talk about this phone, some pros and some cons about this phone. And yes, this year I've used a lot of Xiaomi phones like the Poco phones, the Redmi phones, and all this other stuff like the Mi 11 and Mi 11 Ultra, and it does help me to kind of figure out what to expect with the 11T Pro over here. So like I mentioned, we're going to go through some pros and cons about this phone. So yes, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Alright, so the first pro that we want to talk about is the fact that this phone over here is a very solid device. Now of course, the fact that Xiaomi has come out to say that over here on the back is actually using a glass panel, it did kind of change my mind over here, and to be honest, it kind of psychologically made me think that this is a very premium device. Initially when I first got it, I thought it was plastic, and it did kind of feel plastic, but of course if you kind of look at it, it does really feel and look really good. And of course the fact that it is made out of glass at the end of the day, it does feel very premium. It does have your nice curve on the sides over here. It does have your front display, a flat front display over here. So in terms of just gaming, in terms of just scrolling through your social media, I think I'll enjoy it much better over here compared to the Mi 11 and of course the Mi 11 Ultra, which does have a curved display. Overall, in terms of the premiumness, the design, I really do like it. But one thing to consider over here is the fact that this one over here is very reflective. You can even see yourself over here if you look closely enough. But yes, over here you're going to get a lot of fingerprint magnets over here, so I do advise you to slap on a case over here. In terms of the weight to it, it's very nice to hold. It's a nice size, to be honest, which that's what she said. So yes, overall in terms of build and design over here, there's nothing much to complain about, and I really do like about it over here on the 11T Pro. Alright, and the next pro I want to talk about here is the display of this phone. So unlike the Mi 10T Pro last year, this one does come with your AMOLED display, 120Hz, HDR10 plus support, your Dolby Vision. All in terms of the spec sheet does look really good. But of course, using this as my daily driver, to be honest, I wasn't really wowed by the display over here. And of course, this is me saying that I have used the S21 phones, I have used the Mi 11 Ultras, your OnePlus 9 Pro, and all these top-end phones. So yes, watching content over here, yes, it's a really good display. You get your deep blacks, you get your contrasty images, nice popish colors, and overall you can change your display settings as well. It is really good, but of course it doesn't feel as premium as those phones that I have mentioned. Overall, in terms of the display, it looks really good, and of course, like I mentioned, flat display does help a lot. But one thing I want to talk about here is the MEMC chip over here, which does kind of stutter from time to time. So what I mean by that is sometimes when I'm watching stuff like Netflix and YouTube, it tends to kind of skip the frame sometimes when I'm watching. It does happen about 1 or 2 times during the day, which can get a bit annoying over here, and it still does happen for me over here. And of course, I do like that MEMC chip. I like to watch my content, some old shows over here to make it a little bit smoother over here. But this one over here, I did face it a lot with the 11T Pro, which is something I didn't really face like on my phones like the Poco F3, the Mi 11 Ultra, and all those high-end phones. And the Poco F3 is not really high-end, but yes, you do get it over here with the 11T Pro. So in future updates, I do hope that they will kind of fix this issue over here, which is one of the features that I actually do find is a bit underrated. But overall, in terms of the whole package over here, in terms of the display, it is a very good display. Alright, so next pro I want to talk about here is the battery and charging of this phone. So in terms of battery performance, to be honest, I really do like the battery performance over here. It's even better compared to like the Mi 11 Ultra, the Mi 11, the OnePlus 9 Pros, the S21s and all this. And over here, you do have your 5000 mAh of battery, but somehow they have managed to actually optimize the battery over here. And of course, during the day, I do get a nice 6 hours of screen on time. At the end of the day, I still can get about 30% of battery left, which is still very impressive for this phone over here, seeing that's running 120Hz, your AMOLED display, on all this other stuff with, of course, with the MIUI over here. So in terms of the battery performance, it's really good. And of course, if you talk about the charging as well, over here you do get your 120-watt charger, and of course the best thing about it is the fact that Xiaomi is actually bundling the 120 watts brick charger over here with this phone, which is of course really amazing. Of course, we know about other phone companies that can't even give you a 20-watt charger, but here they actually gave you a 120 watt brick charger. But one thing I want to talk about it is that fact that this charger over here is really heavy, so I don't really bring it out from my house to my workplace or whatsoever. So I just kind of leave it in one place because it's really heavy. And the fact that I don't really use that charger that often, and I use like my car charger, my power banks and all this other stuff, it doesn't really recognize those kind of charging tag over there. So sometimes it doesn't really charge up. Sometimes it charges quite slow, I would say. So yes, this is one thing to consider over here, the fact that if you do use any other chargers over here, it may not work with the 11T Pro, but it does work with like the phones like my Poco F3, the Redmi Note 10 series and all these other phones. So this is something that maybe has changed a bit because this one's using the dual battery and all this other stuff. So yes, this is just one thing to consider in terms of the charging over here with the 11T Pro. And of course, talking about the performance over here, we all know that this phone here is running your top-end specs like your Snapdragon 888, your UFS 3.1, LPDDR5 RAM and all this other stuff. So yes, this is a very powerful phone, and yes, day to day, it's a very good device. I never really encounter a lot of stutters, a lot of lag or whatsoever. In terms of gaming, I don't really get a lot of heating as well. Going through your social media, I never really encounter a lot of problems over here, and performance has been really good with the 11T Pro. But of course, one of the major cons that comes with any Xiaomi device, regardless if you're using a Mi 11 or a Redmi Note 10 phone or a Poco F3, is the fact that they are using the MIUI 12.5. And to be honest, I have to admit that 12.5 doesn't really have too much of a problem, but I know some phones they had problems with the 12.5.3. So yes, this is something that you have to kind of bear with when it comes to Xiaomi phones. Yes, they did promise about 3 years of updates with the Xiaomi 11T Pro, but you know, they're not really consistent with monthly updates and all this other stuff. So if you are a guy like me that actually wants a lot of updates every month, you want your consistent updates, you're not going to really get here with the 11T Pro. And of course, you know, in terms of the bugs, to be honest, I didn't really face a lot of bugs. I know a lot of people were complaining that they had a lot of restarts here and there. To be honest, I did face a little bit bugs over here on this phone. Like sometimes if I'm going through my notification panel, it doesn't really show up really nice, but it wasn't really a deal breaker for me, and I kind of live with it. And maybe it's the fact that I've been using a lot of Xiaomi phones this year, but overall in terms of the software, it does give you a lot of customizations, a lot of personalizations. You can change stuff like your quick feature of your quick ball, you can change your dual apps and all these other things. So yes, this software over here, to be honest, I really do like it over here, and I've got nothing to complain about this one over here. So now we have come towards the end, and this is one of my last thing I'll talk about over here with the 11T Pro, and this is sort of a little bit of a con that comes with this phone, and I'm talking about those cameras. So over here, you know, on paper, it does sound really good, giving you a 108 megapixel sensor, pro grade camera setup. You do have your tele macro shooter, you do have your ultra wide as well. So on paper, it does sound really good. And to be honest, again, I was quite disappointed with the cameras over here because I did compare this to like the phones like my Poco F3, and to be honest, there wasn't a major difference in terms of daytime shots. Of course, if you're into a lot of night photography, a lot of 8K video capture, you may like this one over here because it does record up to 8K, which is something very rare you can find in phone in this type of price range. So yes, this is something to consider. But to be honest, if you want like super really good photos over here, you may not get this with the 11T Pro. Of course, there are some ways that you kind of to adjust about it. Maybe you can use stuff like your G-Cam and all these other things. But in terms of the camera, you know, they kind of advertise a lot about the cinematic feature and all these other things. To be honest, I didn't really find myself using it that much. I find it's a little bit of a gimmick over here. But if you just want to go fancy and go crazy over here, like the dual video feature, yes, you're going to like it here with the 11T Pro. But overall, in terms of the camera setup, I am actually quite impressed. And of course, if you look at the price about it, to be honest, there isn't much to complain about. And of course, you know, it's a little bit contradicting to myself. Of course, I'm comparing, you know, my experience with other phones. But overall, in terms of the camera, you know, you get the job done. You get your ultra wide, you get a nice selfie, you get some nice main lens shots over here. So yeah, it's a really good lens. But again, you know, for the fact that they do advertise it a lot, it was quite disappointing for me. So that is it on my review of the 11T Pro. Overall, in terms of just the value, I think this is a really excellent phone. One of the best, I would say, in 2021. Of course, these are just my thoughts and my opinion. Of course, these are just my experiences as well. Do leave yours in the comment section down below. If you guys did enjoy this and also want to see more of this type of videos, do click the like and smash that subscribe button down below for more videos like this in the future. Do also follow me on my social as well, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also here on YouTube at Dr. Hammerstack. So that is it. This is Dr. Hammerstack. Stay safe, take care, and wash those hands.